Greetings and good Friday afternoon. It's about 12:25 on Friday, the 21st, here in southeastern coastal Carolina, where we are currently experiencing the freezing rain Armageddon crisis, if you will. So most of us are probably snuggled up inside, trying to embrace the warmth that is shelter, while outside it is apparently raining. It is maintaining right at about freezing temperatures, and if it is not still raining, then whatever rain came down last night is possibly frozen. So most of us are staying inside. Awesome. So a couple things have come up recently that I thought prompted my response. It has nothing to do with any of the videos I've posted. It's pertaining to other content. First things first. Because I'm a fan of Smallville, obviously I'm a fan of Michael Rosenbaum, and therefore I like to watch his Inside of You podcast. He's very apolitical, so he doesn't get into political content. He does a 1 hour long segment, not to include mandatory commercials for sponsoring his channel, and he talks to various celebrities. Mostly, as far as I know, they're actors and actresses. Most recently, he had on Jensen Ackles, but it was a previous recording where essentially in the recording he announced that he was working on the film Rust. So I'm assuming that it took place, the recording took place prior to him going to the set and to begin film work, which means it obviously took place prior to the incident involving Alec Baldwin and his mishandling of a weapon. For those of you who may disagree or have a difference in opinion, if you've ever operated with weapons before, if you ever grew up in the lifestyle, you know that there's simple characteristics. Treat every weapon as if it were loaded. That prevents you from treating the weapon as if it's benign, and therefore if you treat it as if it was loaded, you can check it to see if it in fact is loaded before you begin to handle it. Never point the weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. What it promotes is muzzle awareness and weapon awareness, so that you're not pointing the weapon, whether it's loaded or not, at anything you do not intend to shoot, whether it's training or otherwise. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you intend to fire. Well, that one's pretty simple as well. You know, since a firearm is a tool of destruction, it's a tool of death, whether hunting or defense purposes, you keep your finger straight and off the trigger, and then keep the weapon on safe until you intend to fire. If the weapon has a safety feature, you keep the weapon on safe until you intend to use it. All right? And then, of course, the last one that's relatively new is you want to know your target and what lies in between. Because the projectile that comes out of that firearm, also known as the bullet, is not going to stop unless acted upon by an outside force. So whether it loses velocity due to the act of friction from gravity and other microparticles you can't see in the air, or whether it connects with something. If it connects with something but it still has enough velocity to keep going, it will continue to keep going. That's why we say know your target, what lies beyond and what lies between. Because there might be something in between you and your intended target that you don't intend to hit, and there might be something beyond your target that you don't intend to impact. So if your target is not going to absorb and stop the projectile, that's why you know that. So putting all of that aside, all right, hopefully some of you may have learned something, and if you didn't, fuck off. So he has this podcast. I'm assuming he got permission from Jensen to go ahead and air it. And during the podcast, among all the things they talk about the minor rift with he and Jared over a potential prequel, and where all it really was a miscommunication where Jensen is somewhat superstitious and he doesn't like to jinx anything. But unfortunately, the cat got out of the bag before he could do anything about it, so he decided to address it. Well, when he did so, he didn't get a chance to address Jared on the subject. As a human being who's fallible and who's made mistakes, I get it. I understand. Then he goes on to talk about other projects he's done, and I forget if it was a question posed by Michael Rosenbaum or how the subject came up, but basically he acknowledges that when he worked on Dark Angel, he had a very tenuous relationship with the lead actress, which was Jessica Alba. Now, he wasn't, from what I understood, and again, trying to remain objective in spite of my potential bias towards Jensen, who I watched for 15 years on Supernatural. I watched him for a season before that on Smallville, so I've enjoyed Jensen Ackles as an actor. He basically he explains himself and more or less defends his position, while at the same time acknowledging he had a tenuous relationship with Jessica Alba. He explains why he may have had that relationship, and then he also goes on to explain that it is since then ended, Dark Angel ended, it's over, and that he and Jessica are on good terms. And then he also talks about when he was on Dawson Creek, some of the relationships he had where Michelle Williams, I think it is, and I could be wrong, how he had a bit of a tenuous relationship with her as well. Maybe not nearly as combative as the one with Jessica Alba, but nevertheless, she was very quiet and what's the word I'm looking for? Introverted, so to speak. And the whole time Jensen was very kind, courteous, honest, yet objective. He wasn't slandering anybody. He wasn't slamming anybody. He was very honest and objective in his interpretation, and that's what the show Inside of You is designed for, courtesy of Michael Rosenbaum. Why am I bringing it up? Because just yesterday on YouTube there was a clickbait blurb about Jensen Ackles basically slamming Jessica Alba, and that wasn't the case whatsoever. That was completely taken out of context for the sole and utter purpose of creating clickbait content. Creating sensationalism where there isn't any, creating friction where there isn't any. But don't take my word for it. By all means, go to the Inside of You podcast hosted by Michael Rosenbaum and watch the most recent one that he posted with Jensen Ackles and determine for yourself. Make your own informed decision, be your own informed human being and see for yourself. And then in addition to that, another person whose content I enjoy on YouTube from time to time is Razorfist, specifically his show Rageaholic, where he does his rants on various topics. And most recently he did a rant pertaining to Joss Whedon. So for anybody who knows me close enough, you also know that I'm a bit of a nerd, and I'm not closeted about it. I'm a bit of a nerd. Huge Firefly Serenity fan. Was also a big fan of Angel, and most recently my wife and I are watching Buffy. Apparently we've never actually watched it from start to finish. It's funny, it's cute, it's interesting because it's not woke. It has nothing to do with modern day social trends of the present era. And what's interesting is watching people that are relatively close to our age back in the 90s and reliving and remembering what the late 90s was like. But I digress. So Razorfist goes on to provide his own personal opinion on the whole Joss Whedon saga and events, while admitting that he's not necessarily a fan and doesn't really like Whedon as a person. He acknowledges that as a content creator, such as Buffy, such as Angel, such as Firefly Serenity, and or as a director or screenwriter or whatever who's responsible for other projects like Avengers and Justice League, there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that, to include passion. If you're the content creator, it's your vision, okay? It comes from you, it's your baby, so yeah, there should be some passion, there should be some emotion tied to it. All right, and if you're employing people, as in you're paying them to perform a service, in this case actors and actresses, if they're not performing to your standard as the content creator, as the one who's been charged with bringing these stories to life, all right, for the purpose of whatever, yeah, why can't you act like a boss and be like a boss? But again, here's the thing, I wasn't there, I don't know, I don't exactly know what happened. I just find it funny that for a man who potentially took people from obscurity, who were, for all intents and purposes, struggling actors and actresses, and has since then propelled them into, what's the word I'm looking for? Like David Boreanaz, Nathan Fillion, Morena Baccarin, Alan Tudyk, just to name a handful of people. Just because some people didn't exactly go many places afterwards, whether that's because of them, personal decisions, I don't know. But, I find it weird and coincidental that in the recent events within the last 5 years, all of a sudden, he's finally being slandered. He's finally being the target of hatred, when, as far as I can tell, all he ever did was create content that a portion of our population has enjoyed. You know, he took actors and actresses who were relatively unknown and propelled them into stardom status. And, you know, it's kind of like that old phrase, bite the hand that feeds you, or look a gift horse in the mouth. I wasn't there. I don't know what really happened. I don't know if people's comments are justified. I don't know if people's feelings are justified. I'm not here to devalue anybody's thoughts or opinions, but I just find it interesting that, you know, all of a sudden with this talk of the Zack Snyder cut, all of a sudden Joss Whedon is the target of negative attention, and then all of a sudden Joss Whedon is the target of, I don't know, malicious attacks. When you look at pretty much everything he ever did, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all right, the lead character, the lead hero is a heroine. It's a female. It's, you know, I'm surprised they're not complaining about the skin complexion or the sexual preference of Buffy. And there were so many other powerful female characters in the Buffyverse. Then you look at Angel. Again, the lead character is a male, and once again, surprised, nobody's trying to talk about the sexual preference or the skin complexion of Angel, but there were equally strong female characters in Angel. You look at Firefly, Serenity. All right, you had extremely powerful female characters in that creation. So Joss Whedon has always been a proponent for strong female characters. So I just find it a little weird and a little awkward, but you know, this is America. We are free to feel however we want to feel. We are free to express ourselves however we want to express ourselves, as long as it's within the confines of the law. We're also free to believe whatever the hell we want to believe. I'm just having a hard time believing that Joss Whedon is actually 100% a justifiable monster. Just like, you know, I 100% don't believe in how it's being framed that Jensen was thrashing Jessica Alba for being a monster. But you do you. But if you want to discuss it, if you want to argue the point, whatever the case may be, here's a platform to do so. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment, whatever the case may be. You know, I'm kind of curious for your feedback. And if you're interested, check out the Inside of You podcast featuring Michael Rosenbaum, and check out Razorfist. Talk to you guys later.